for one of the producers of a TV anthology series at HBO.
He's the person that finishes my sentences.
I'm the Michael Whisperer. Yeah.
God, I'm going to need that.
Michael and I co-wrote a couple of magazine articles together. So.
Oh yeah.
What did you say? It's dead. Okay. So I'll ask him about time. So Jenette, thanks for coming.
Sure.
And I want to. Well, first of all, where were you born?
I was born in Los Angeles.
In Los Angeles.
Mm-hmm.
And how old were you when you moved to London? And what were the circumstances of you being in London when Jim cast Aliens?
Well, actually, the circumstances of me being in London was that I met an Englishman.
Oh, there we go.
There, yeah, of course. There you go. I met him, I met him in Ireland. I was hitchhiking around Europe. I think I was 19 or 20. And we met and started a relationship. And then this is when I went to New York to drama school. So I went to Circle in the Square for 2 years. And then
cool.
In between, I'm trying to think, in between I decided, okay, after I finish this, I want to go to London. I want to go there because I've always wanted to, work on the stage, and England is the place to be. So,
right.
So we got married. I was 21. It was more like, he was my boyfriend, but we thought, might as well get married, so immigration would be a lot easier to get over.
Yep.
So I went over there. I got enrolled in an English drama school called Webber Douglas, and it was a postgraduate degree, so to do one more year. And I moved over to London. I guess it was 1982, did that. And then I, just stayed working, riding my bike around London, auditioning for little, shows in black boxes and above pubs and, like what I would have done in New York, but I was doing it in London.
Right. So how long were you in London before you met Jim?
Let me see. So I was in London 1 year, and then there were 3 years. I guess I was, 3 years, because I was there a total of 4, so like 3.5 years.
Okay.
Yeah.
Okay. Can you? I just want to get right into it, just because of our past and everything. Can you describe? It sounds like you're auditioning. Can you describe what the circumstances in which you had a chance to meet and or audition for and or come back and meet Jim and then get cast?
Oh, it was nothing that I'd ever thought I would do. I grew up in Hollywood. I went to Beverly Hills High School.
You went to Beverly Hills High. I used to have a girlfriend that went to Beverly Hills High. Yeah.
No, Beverly was an amazing high school. It had this
So did
famous...
I had a girlfriend who went to Beverly Hills.
Oh, yeah. So, I was there. I guess I graduated.
Did you come from a wealthy family?
No, not at all.
Okay.
We lived in what was called the slums of Beverly Hills.
Okay.
You know that movie with Natasha Lyonne?
Yeah.
Oh, such a great movie. And it was written by someone I went to high school with, because that was the story of the
funny.
kids who lived, we called it the slums. It's,
Right.
whatever. And
Yeah.
there were railroad tracks, and you lived south.
Olympic Boulevard, Beverly
I lived on
Hills.
9620 and a half was my apartment, the first of many apartments on Olympic Boulevard. Yeah, my dad worked at the VA.
Okay.
So he was at the Veterans Administration, and he worked there. And then,
Good thing he's not working there now.
Oh, yeah, no. He, but, yeah,
Anyway,
exactly. He'd be gone.
I'm sorry, go ahead.
Yeah, no. So we were, we were just sort of solidly lower middle class, but we wanted to go to a great, public school. And then I found the drama department, and, there was a famous teacher there, Mr. Engel, which, was great. So what was I saying?
So you went to high school?
Yeah, I went to high school there. I'd met, obviously, I knew what the actor's life was. I knew either, you somehow became a star like Martin Landau and Barbara Bain. They'd been, in New York being a stage actress, and poof, they did this silly little show called Mission Impossible. And oh my God, okay, now we have money. And then other parents who were like, you'd see them on TV and they're just jobbing, middle class character actors. So I knew it was just kind of a potluck sort of thing, whether you became famous.
Even when you were in high school, from what you've seen the other kids' parents.
It's great. It's great. So you really know how the business works.
Right.
But I just wanted to be on stage. Theater theater, Shakespeare, the classics. I just loved theater. So my whole goal was to go to New York.
Yeah.
And then also I'd gone to London and I saw the theater over there. And so I kind of did my thing. And I was just, auditioning for...
Did you do any theater
in London?
In London?
Yeah, I did. God, what was this? Oh my God, like there were pub things. I did it's called a pantomime. It's like a children's, it's not a pantomime as the Americans say. A pantomime is like a Christmas fairy tale play where the audience, anyway, it was called Sleeping Beauty in Space. And I did that. We rehearsed in a squat. I remember we had to climb through a window and we toured that. And then I did this, just a lot of little independent things.
Yeah, okay.
So nothing, but I did have a one-woman show. And that was the one thing that I got my equity card.
When you did a one-woman show, is that something that was a one-woman show that somebody else wrote that you
No, I
did?
wrote it.
You wrote it.
So I developed it.
What is that? Please tell me what that's all. What was
Yeah,
all
no,
about?
it was really cool. It was actually a project at drama school. So they had, and they said, it'd be great to have a one-person show. So what it was is you chose a character in a play, a Shakespearean play, and not the lead, someone who's not the main character.
Okay.
And you develop their life in the play that's not on stage,
like a Rosencrantz and Guildenstern.
Yeah, very, very much. Yeah. So
Yeah.
you're creating, as an actor, you always think about, what does this character do when doesn't have its few scenes.
Yeah.
So we were, that was the project, to kind of think of what to do. And it's funny, I forget why I did, but I was reading The Merchant of Venice, and I thought, well, it might be interesting. I'd never read it. Of course, I heard about Shylock and the whole story, but I'd actually never read it all the way through. And I'm reading it, and I realize, he has a daughter. I had no idea. I'm Jewish, so I was very interested in that whole, the idea of the Jews, and is he a bad character, a good character? Is it an anti-Semitic play or not, or what is it? Fascinating play. And I was like, I had no idea he had a daughter. That's fascinating. Why is she never? I wonder what happens to her.
There you go. Yeah.
Yeah, I was like, and then you follow her and she betrays him and she leaves him and she marries this Christian and she says she converts, but then there's this scene where the clown character says, well, you're not a real Christian. You're just going to raise the price of pork. But then I'm like, whoa, that's kind of hard there. And I'm thinking, okay, so we get to the end, where he does his famous speech, and she's there, and I'm like, oh my God, what's she going to say? What's going to happen? She's watching her father being humiliated, and the play ends, and Portia does the whole thing, and she wins, and she says, let's go off to dinner, and here's the ring, la 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 la, and they go off. And then I was like, wait, what happened? Where's the end? What does she do? This is crazy. This can't be the end of the play. And so I was really confused, and I went to my teacher who was developing these projects, and I mentioned that, and I said, has anyone ever said anything about this character, Jessica? Because I can't find any notation of her and why she never speaks after a certain point. And she says, that's really it. She said, well, there's a director, Jonathan Miller, a very famous director. He just passed away.
Yes.
So yeah, he said
Beyond the Fringe.
Yeah,
was
so
a famous
exactly.
production that he was involved in.
He was part of the Monty Python group. Jonathan Miller.
Dudley Moore and Peter Cook.
Absolutely, and I didn't know, but he is Jewish. He was Jewish, and apparently, fairly recently to her, back there in the 80s, he had done a production of The Merchant of Venice. And when it ends, everybody, sweeps off onto the wings to go off to the celebratory dinner, except for Jessica. And he just holds her there alone in a spotlight that slowly dims.
Cool.
And so she said, write it. Go ahead and write it. And I was like, very long story short, I wrote this one-person show called Jessica's Monkey. Because it also, one of the things is when she runs away on her honeymoon, she buys a monkey. Actually, I thought, that is so bizarre. You know what I mean? And then the idea.
That's what people do,
Yeah. And then I was
Who doesn't do that? Yeah.
Well, no. I mean, she doesn't know what to do. She's living with, where's her mother? Her mother died. I don't know. I found this fascinating character. So I I developed the play, and then I did it, when I left school, and I did it for different schools, and I did it for centers, and I also did when I did it for schools, I would do a talk on the Jews of England, because of course there were no Jews in England at that time. They had been,
Which one?
they had been,
After this, after World War II?
No. This in the 1200s. They were swept
I see.
out and purged from
Yes.
England. So when Shakespeare was writing, there were no Jews anymore.
Okay.
So it was interesting. I did a whole history of the Jews in Italy and the ghettos, and anyway, so I did these, and then I got an equity card.
Right.
Which meant,
with that play, with your own one person play, that got you your equity card?
Yeah, I got an equity card.
Okay.
Because in England, although it's changed now in those days, you couldn't audition for film unless you were a stage actor.
Right.
Which is really an interesting thing.
Yes.
So I had just gotten an equity card, which means I could audition for, film and television, which I'd never thought about. I didn't even have an agent.
Okay.
And then I just saw this ad in the actors' paper in the back, send your resumes and pictures for a film called Aliens if you are an American actor that holds a British equity card. And that's what it was. And I was like, oh, Aliens.
Isn't that, Michael, kind of similar to Rico Ross's path to Aliens?
Well, Rico was over.
You got a British equity card, I know.
Well, yeah, all the Americans and, North Americans, the Canadians,
right.
All of us were married. You had to be a legal resident. And that's another thing. So your green card in England is called your resident alien card.
Right.
So you're a resident alien. So all of us were married. Some of us maybe to their gay best friend. Who knows? I wasn't going to ask, but they were married.
Right.
And they were resident aliens. And so when I saw that, word aliens, for a second, I thought, oh, that film Alien, 8 years ago? No, you don't do. Who does a sequel 8 years afterwards?
Right.
And I thought, oh, okay, well maybe they're doing it about the underground. You marry somebody to get your resident alien.
Right.
It's about immigrants. The
Okay.
under the underground. So that's what I thought when I sent it in.
You sent in your resume.
Yeah, just picture and resume.
Yeah.
Picture, not many credits on that resume.
Right.
Sent it in with my phone number. I'm trying to think because there's no cell phones, there was no email. It must have just my landline.
Mailed it. Yeah.
Yeah, exactly. I mailed it, and my landline. They must have called me in my little flat in East London.
Let me ask you a question. Before you went in and met Jim for the first time, were you already bodybuilding?
Yes.
Yes.
And
okay. So tell me a little bit about
how'd that happen.
that was 40 years ago, and there, I don't know about women bodybuilding back then. I just am not that. Obviously now, it's a big thing, but how did you ever get into that, and what was your motivation for doing it? Because I think that probably played a role in Jim
getting the job. Oh,
casting.
it absolutely did. I mean, that was the thing that made I didn't say I was a body. I had that kind of physique in my resume. It was just here's an American who has a British equity card. That's all. But when I walked in and they saw, I had this physique that they actually wanted. Jim, I had heard that they were going to look for a bodybuilder. There actually was one, like, Arnold, and then teach her how to act, because he really wanted the visual to be there.
Yep.
How did I? It's very strange. Yeah, there were no normal women, everyday women doing that. I mean, there was this weird, subset, not weird, but Miss America, very, very subset of women doing it. It's very rare. I was a tomboy.
Okay.
I was raised by my dad with a brother, and I loved jumping off of roofs and things, and I wanted to do everything my brother did. So I had a pull-up bar in my in the closet where we would do pull-ups with each other, and then I did gymnastics.
Okay. Okay.
And really, it was the weight room, it was this weird, in high school, I was like, I don't want to go on to a sports team. So I was pretty, athletically, physically fit. And there was this PE class that was called like independent study, where you could make up your own program. It was just guys. And part of it was going to the weight room. So I was like, okay, I'll lift weights. And so I did what they did, bench press, squat, whatever that kind of thing was, And when I was in England, when I was in London, it just happened to be there was a gym down the street. I was the only woman, except for the owner's daughter, me and her, and a bunch of guys.
What part of London?
It was East London.
Oh, yeah.
It was Hackney.
Oh, okay.
So, it was, it was all these guys. And, but actually, so Mr. Britain worked out there. And for a few months, Miss Britain also.
Oh, so there was a sort of a woman's.
Oh, there was women, but it was very,
small,
very. Oh my God! So I just thought it was really cool, and I just enjoyed it. It was one of these things, and now it's so funny because it's like it's all of a sudden it's really healthy to lift weights, of course.
Yes, it is.
Yeah, it's incredibly healthy. I mean, I really enjoyed pitting myself against something.
Yep.
And then with a lot of effort accomplishing something. Yes. To me it was great, especially because as an actor, 1 and 1 never equals 2. I mean, you can do everything right and it just it doesn't move the needle, which is fine, but you still have to. But that was something so it was almost like meditation for me. It was like, I'm going to go to the gym and I'm going to see if I can get it heavier. And then, I started getting in shape, and then I started going to these bodybuilding shows in East London, which were wild. They were wild.
In what way?
It's a whole subculture. I don't know. Have you ever been to
a world?
Have you ever been to a bodybuilding?
I have not.
Well, Pumping Iron is an incredible documentary.
I've seen Pumping Iron.
Oh yeah,
of course.
Well, it's that, but if you think of that, this is the 80s, and then the women's version of it.
Yes,
is even more strange. And this is before the use of steroids, right?
Yes.
And so it was a whole subculture, and I've always been really interested in different subcultures. And so I just thought, I'm going to hang around. I didn't know any actors. So my husband was a veterinarian.
Okay.
So he wasn't an actor. All the people I went to drama school, I didn't, they went kind of back to their little places. So I didn't really have many friends. So it was just me. And so I just really got into this subculture of bodybuilders. And it was just neat. And I was like, hey, I wonder if I'm pretty good at this, And I was like, let me give this a try. So I took like a year. And I trained for, Miss Britain.
Wow.
I trained.
Wow.
I thought,
so that was your goal. Your goal was
Yeah.
Okay.
I mean, I was auditioning, and doing everything too. But I just thought,
you're working out every day.
Yeah, and I got the 6 days a week, 3 days on, 1 day off, and then I got the, the Joe Weider bodybuilding magazine, and
of course,
I did all that.
I remember that.
Then
of course.
You diet it down, and I competed. And I went, and I competed in Miss Britain.
Right.
I rarely say this. And I tied for 5th out of a field of 6. So that's that's just to show you how good I was. I mean, I looked amazing. I had built this physique, and I had, dieted down so you could see all my muscles and everything. And just the timing which was just one of these crazy things, the universe brings you, is that I just finished it. And then a month later, I was still in that shape, and that's when I met Jim. And here I was in the best shape of my life, looking like I was a professional bodybuilder.
Well, when you, so you send in your resume, and you go in, you meet Jim, and or you go in and meet it.
I bet Gail.
Tell me how that progressed, and how. I mean, the character was always named Vasquez, correct? And you're not exactly the Vasquez type, per se, as far as. I mean, being an actress, you're Jewish, you're not Hispanic, and you play a Hispanic character. So when did that did you go in an audition for Gail, or?
Yeah, well, a character actress, and we're talking about in the 80s, and you train to be whoever the script is. I mean, if you're...
Did you have a script when you went?
No,
Okay.
no, just a couple of sides. But I'm saying as far as... I'm just trying to think, when you audition for a play, let's say, let's do Shakespeare again. You're not looking for a woman who is English, who, has a background from, England to play an English character. You're playing a role, and you're always becoming a different person from a different background of who you are. I mean, I guess identity didn't matter as much. I mean, I am a Jew whose family ended up in Russia, and some ended up in Brazil, and some ended up in... I don't think there will ever be a part where I would go play my background. I mean, I actually just recently, for the first time, I played a Jew, and it was fantastic because they were they were actually, because of how things are, they were looking for a Jewish actress to play a Jewish role. So I was like, hey, I gotta, and I played a Holocaust survivor it's a short film, but I went in to read. They were looking for, I think it was the role of Dietrich and Pharaoh.
Okay.
They were not looking, and then you have to run this by Jim is to get the whole exact, but as I understood, because they told me, you're not auditioning for this role. It's already cast.
Vasquez?
Yeah.
Okay.
Vasquez is already cast. So,
okay.
But this has the most lines together. We just want to hear how you read.
Right.
I was like, okay.
This is with Gail.
Yeah, it was good with Gail.
Okay.
And it's so funny because I didn't have an agent, and I was really nervous. I'm not going to say, and who are you? Because, I walked into this office, and there's this young woman.
Very young.
I was 25. Was she 29?
She's about Jim and my age. Yeah, about that.
Crazy.
She would have been.
Yep.
Yeah,
Close to that.
So I just walk into this office, and there's this woman, this young
She
attractive
was
sort
only
of.
about 8 years out of college. She and I were classmates at Stanford together, and so she was only 8 years out of college at that point.
It was just so I was like, and I remember the most embarrassing thing was she's in an office, so I'm thinking, is she? Obviously, I'm thinking she's the casting director, or I don't know.
Right.
See, I haven't even auditioned ever for a film or TV. I'm just auditioning for stage. You just go into a stage, and they're sitting in the. So she could have been the secretary leading me. I didn't want. I was like, but what I did see was the poster of Terminator behind her on the wall, and I had just seen it. I loved it, and I was like, oh my God. I loved that movie. Have you seen it?
That's a good way to start with Gail Hurd. I'm sure that was
But I didn't.
Did you ask her? Did you say to her, "I love that movie. Have you seen it?"
Well, I figured she had seen it because she was on her wall. I thought she was a fan of it.
Right. Okay.
Because I had seen it myself, and I went back the next night with my husband to see it again.
Wow.
And she goes
in the theaters.
Yeah. Oh yeah.
Okay. All right.
Oh yeah, in the movie theater.
Okay. All right.
And she said, "Oh, that's ours."
Right.
And I was like, that's ours. Okay, I'm not gonna ours. It's and I was like, oh no, I gotta. I was confused. How could it be hers? It's hers. What? I don't know. Her poster. I don't know. What is she talking about?
Right.
But obviously, she has something to do with this movie because she's saying here, read this. And then she said the funny thing was she goes, do you know what this? You don't have an agent, do you? I said no. She said, do you know what this is about? Has anyone told you? I said no. I'm sorry. She said, well, have you ever seen the movie Alien? I said, "Oh yeah." She said, "Well, this is the sequel." And I was like, "Oh." And then she said, "And so what we're looking for? It's a Marines that go back." And I just thought, "Oh my God, Marines!" I was wearing the wrong thing. I had very long hair, and I went in and I was wearing some slacks, with little heels and a nice blouse, and but it was a hot day, so it was sleeveless. So I said, "Oh, actually, and I gave bicep muscle, and I said I'm kind of a strong girl," and she was like, "Oh my God, what are you? why are you a bodybuilder?" And I said, "No," and I said, "It's just this crazy thing I do. I'm actually an actress." And then she said, "Oh, do you know any other actresses who are muscular and?" Or bodybuilders? I said, no, I don't know anyone. And she said, okay, well, why don't you come back and we want to see how you read and dress a little more appropriately to be a Marine.
A Marine.
Yeah.
Okay.
So,
Okay.
I came back in a pair of, Doc Marten boots and my hair slicked back. And
to read for which character the second
She
time?
didn't-
Do you
she
remember?
didn't
She didn't say.
no, she didn't say.
It
She
was
just
just like,
said,
come back
it's a
and-
Marine. It's one of the Marines.
Okay, one of the Marines. Okay.
It's just one of the Marines. And it's not this role. We just want to hear how you read.
Yeah.
So we just want to hear these lines.
Okay.
So I just was like, well, how do you read a line? And I read, I'm just going to be her. Why not?
Right.
Why not be this character? I don't care if it's been cast. I'm just going to be her.
Okay.
And that's when she said, oh, okay. Do you have time to go for lunch and come back? And I, well, absolutely. And she said, here, take these lines. It's a character called Hudson. You're also not reading for him. I was like, okay, I don't, who am I reading for? And it was that monologue where he's like kind of jazzing everybody up. We got sticks, we got stones, he's that. So I went out and I looked at that and I came back and I did my version of Hudson, this real hyped up person.
Bill Paxton.
Yeah, I don't know, whatever it was, it was my version of.
Yeah, I don't remember the sticks and stones being part of the. Is that in the movie?
No. He goes, we got this, we got weapons, we got sticks, we got. He's like saying we got everything.
Okay,
he's just riffing on.
Okay, right.
And so I came back and I did that. I had a great time being that kind of hyper dude.
Yeah.
And then she's like, okay, thank you. And then I left and I just thought, what the hell? Who am I? What's going on? And then I get a call to come and meet Jim. Again, I didn't know who he was. Again, I was embarrassed to kind of say, are you the
right.
I knew he had a lot to do with it, but he was crawling around on the floor with me, improvising. So I just thought, no, a director.
And at that point, he was improvising, and were you reading?
I was reading Vasquez.
You were reading Vasquez.
Still reading Vasquez. And I don't know what he was saying. He was asking me about the character. He said, so how do you, you've got the accent, the whole thing. I said, well, I'm from LA and I'm an actress, and I know this subculture. Like I said, I like subcultures, and I know all the Chicanas and the gang members and all of that. You study and and
absorb, yeah,
whatever, and so he started asking me about her, and then he asked my ethnic background and this and that, and then we improvised and talked about the character. And it was really fun. And he said, oh, okay, that's great. Okay, thank you. And then I left the room.
Right.
And I'm like packing my stuff up because I was all the way out in Pinewood and I had to figure out what train to get back. And the casting director ran out after me. And he said, can you come back into the room? I was like, yeah, sure. And I come back in and Jim, he said, okay, this is really strange. We want you in this film, but we don't know which role you're going to have.
Okay.
Because we want you before anyone else gets you, which was funny because I don't know who was going to get me. But
Full Metal Jacket.
yeah, exactly. So
that's Mark's story, but yeah.
Were there any women in Full Metal?
Not Mark. Rico's story. Rico.
Yeah, it was Rico.
No, there was no.
And Bill Hope. And Bill
William
Hope was
Hope
also,
too?
yeah.
Okay.
He was also cast in that too.
Yeah, go ahead.
So yeah. So he said, here's the script. Don't show it to anyone. Give us some time. And in a couple of weeks, we'll let you know which role you're going to play.
Okay.
So I went. I was so over the moon. I could not believe it. I was in a.
Do you remember? Because people talk about reading the Terminator, reading the script for the Terminator, and we're like, oh my God, this thing is just And I don't. Do you remember reading Aliens and thinking that the script itself was like something fantastic that you hadn't, like, oh my God, this is.
It was great. So I had never
read any script.
screenplays.
All right.
I've never read any screenplays.
Okay.
I'd never read a screenplay.
Right.
I'd only read, plays.
Right.
Dramatist play service. So I was just riveted, you know what I mean? And the little, description of each character about Vasquez and Drake, how they came from, juvenile prison, and
that was in the script?
Yeah.
Okay.
They were conscripted, serving life sentences in juvenile prison.
Okay.
And
okay.
I just everything, and I remember it had a description of her. Oh yeah, I know what it was. The two of them played like Doberman pinchers together.
Right,
and,
right.
it was and just page by page, it was so. It was enthralling. What I noticed when I actually came to Hollywood and started reading screenplays.
Yes. Yeah.
I was like, ugh, this is shit.
Right.
I mean, now I know. Then I realized that was unique.
Yes.
Yeah, I was spoiled that was unique. You do not, you rarely,
of course,
like Near Dark. That was a beautiful, screenplay. But a lot of them are just blueprints, and it's just the first part of a huge collaboration.
Okay, we're going to get to Near Dark, but I want to continue with with Alien. So. A couple weeks go by, they call you and say, we want you to, after you've read the script and you're waiting, and all of a sudden they just call and say, we'd like you to play
Vasquez. Yeah.
Vasquez?
It was like, we got some good news for you. You're going to play Vasquez.
Who told you that? Do you remember?
It was Mary Selway was the casting director.
Okay.
Yeah, I mean, I was over the moon that I couldn't believe it. I was in a movie.
When you said you lived out at Pinewood, is that by Pinewood Studios?
I didn't live out there. I lived in East London, but Pinewood is outside of London.
Yeah.
So you have to take a train out there.
Yes. Okay. So when you, maybe you said something about being at Pinewood. Maybe it was for the auditions that you were just talking. Were you auditioning at Pinewood?
Yeah.
Oh, okay.
Yeah.
Okay.
The first meeting was in London, but the eventual ones you went out to the studio where Jim was. He was at Pinewood.
Right.
Yeah. I don't know at what point did they find me. I'm not really sure.
And then, at what point do you then start rehearsing, meet the other actors that you're going to be working with, to go through that training process? What transpired after the casting director said you've got the role? Then what happened?
I think it was pretty fast. I don't know what, like I said, I don't know where they were in the process of finding the other actors, or where they were in the process with whoever they thought was going to play Vasquez, or they had thought, they had planned, or. But it was pretty fast. I went in, and it was 2 weeks.
Okay.
I wasn't put through this training program, prior to the 2 weeks. But in the 2 weeks, we had the gym there. Oh, yeah, of course, you weren't there.
Right. Right.
But but it was great. The table read, and you met everyone, and then you got to hang out, and you did arms practice, and you the stuntmen who had been in SAS Special Forces in Northern Ireland had taught us how to approach a building in urban warfare, and it was incredible. It was 2 weeks of rehearsal. I mean, that's very short for the theater, but you never have rehearsal in film.
Not anymore.
No, I mean.
No. Not that long, no.
No, because time is money. But it was incredible. And then we went and met each other's families. I mean, Sigourney hadn't arrived yet, which is fine because she was on the continent doing another film. But, she wasn't part of the crew, but it really solidified all of us.
Right. So are you just confident? Do you feel confident? I mean,
the opposite.
You've never been, if you've never auditioned for a film before, you'd never been in front of a camera per se, right? And you really didn't know what it was like to be on a film TV set, which are kind of the same, vibe, sound, props, all that matching, all that kind of stuff. You were
none of that. I mean, because I grew up in Hollywood. I mean, although I never did. I ever go to a filming of a TV show, like sit in the. No, I mean, it's like, it's kind of crazy. Yeah, no, talk about imposter syndrome. Oh my God. Oh my God. Except for, I mean, Jim just said, I have utter confidence in you.
Wow.
And you know who this person is.
Wow.
It wasn't like confidence that you know what matching is or where you're.
How would you describe when people ask you about Jim, and you did you worked on 3 different movies with Jim. How do you describe Jim? And is this the Jim Cameron you worked with on Aliens the same Jim Cameron that you worked with on Titanic? As far as did you notice? People ask me all the time, and I know what I say, and I would just like to know what your opinion is as far as working for him and what you thought about him.
Yeah,
as a boss and as a filmmaker, and
that's a really good. That's a great question. Yeah, because I'm trying to, he was the same. I mean, the same intense person. There's no like chatter and fun talk, and I mean, no, none of that. I mean, I see him. I don't, as a shy person. I know how like shy people are. They can be really gruff because they don't know how to make small talk. I'm just thinking like of my dad. My dad's not he doesn't know how to say the right thing. So sometimes he can come very gruff, because you just don't know how to do that. You're very intense. You're very focused. You want to get the job done, and you're with your people. And but it was different. It's funny because here he was in London, and there were the people from Stan Winston's group with him.
Yes.
Like his people, but there were a lot of not his people.
Yes.
So there,
Wait, is that the case that when you work at Pinewood, if you go to work for Pinewood, you have to hire a certain amount of people that are like regulars at Pinewood that are certain crewmen, right? And those were the people that were having trouble with Jim and vice versa. Correct?
It's a huge studio, and you have it's the people. And I think it's probably like that with the big studios. There's the people who are always there, and there's the people you bring in. But it was much more so
structured that way.
Structured, and the prop guy. He was the grandson of the prop guy, and things were done.
They were a certain way.
Yeah, they were done a certain way, and and then you have this young,
brash.
Yeah, brash,
kick-ass.
And then American. They don't like Americans.
Right.
Look down upon Americans and all of that, and. Yeah, it was tense, because he had to prove himself, that kind of a thing. Whereas in Terminator 2, he had proved himself, and the people he had around him were his people. And then with Titanic, it was a massive, my God, it reminded me of Pinewood, the sound stages. Oh my God, it was just, the scale was enormous, but everyone was his people there.
Yes.
Although he had the same intensity. If you veered from what was going on, like there was only one time. I don't know. Do you want to talk about Titanic or any?
Yeah,
I will eventually. Yeah,
sure. I'm just talking about.
Talk about it all. Yeah, you're talking about Jim, and that's you worked with him in 3 different movies. So to talk about him and
So in Titanic, I mean, there was this moment in the scene with me with the little kids when we're being locked behind in 3rd class behind the bars, and all the people, the extras are pushing on the let us out, and the little boy says, what's happening, Mom? We're waiting.
Yeah.
And he does he says his one line, and I say, and when they're ready, they'll be ready for us. And then Jim says, "All right, cut, let's go again, please." And the little boy goes, "Oh, did I make a mistake? We have to do it again? Did I?" And everyone bursts into laughter.
Okay.
Because this little boy had never been on set, and he thought the reason he had to go again because he made a mistake.
Yeah.
And everyone burst into laughter, and Jim goes, "Quiet,
right,
please."
Right. Yep.
Because the little boy, got him, people are laughing at him. That he seemed, and he just like the whole thing.
So he said quiet, not because he wanted to move on, but he wanted to protect the child's.
Absolutely.
Okay.
Absolutely.
Okay.
This child.
Okay.
And, they're, it's not, you understand why they weren't laughing at him, but it was just.
Yeah, of course.
However, he was like in the zone, and it was like quiet.
Right.
And then he realized, okay, this little boy, and he stopped everything, and he went to him right, the camera, and leaned, bent down and just said, "Oh, if you've never been on a movie set before," and the little boy's like shaking his head. He said, "Okay, well, let me tell you how movies are made." And he stopped the whole time, and he said, "Okay, so what we do, we first film. It's called a master, and we do it like over and over, maybe 3 times, 4 times. You think you can do that?" And it's like, and he said, "And then what we're going to do is we're going to take it, and we're just going to have you. We're going to do it again." And you're going to do it again. Like you do, and he just took this time just to make this little boy feel really calm, and then he said, "All right, we're going again." So.
God, it's too bad somebody wasn't recording that.
Yeah, it was, I always remembered that. I always, and the interesting thing about that little boy is that we did the very last scene where they're asleep in bed, they're going to sleep, and I tell them the bedtime story as the ship is going down. We finish, and Jim goes, "All right, that's a wrap," and that's a thank you, Jenette Goldstein, and that was our last scene. Thank you, that's it. And then the little boy tugs my shirt, and he goes, "Well, what about the other scene?" And I was like, "What other scene?" He goes, "The one when we get on the boats." Because I told him the last scene we're getting on the boats because they're coming for us. Right. And I was like, "Ooh, ask your mother. Maybe she knows when they're filming that."
Right.
Like, oh, yeah.
Well, why do you think that Jim is misunderstood by the general sort of public out there? That it seems like Jim's always kind of fighting uphill as far as being. I
don't think he cares. I mean that's.
Oh, I think he cares. I think he.
Everybody cares. I don't. I wouldn't want to be in that position where your every move is.
Yeah, I've always felt with Jim that. He sets the bar real high. Yeah. And I'm if you're lifting weights, you're competitive. You're in sports, you're competitive, and I'm always like, all right, you put the bar up that high, I'll try to get over it, and I'll do everything I can. And it always seemed to me that he always worked maybe 2 or 3 times harder and longer than everybody else, and he's never. What's kind of amazing also about Jim is that although I think you were in the drop ship with us, but Jim has done all of these action sequences, all these big movies with fires and explosions and the Terminator and Alien. Like nobody's ever been hurt. That I know. I mean, maybe somebody broke a leg or something.
I didn't think about that. Yeah, no, I mean. Oh, God, thank God.
Nobody's ever been hurt. I've been on 2 movies where people have been killed. And I've been on other films where people are, hurt and have,
well, you told me, Michael, about Jim being deeply affected by somebody being killed shooting a scene that he wrote and he wasn't even directing.
Yeah. That's basically, that was the Stallone movie, like
Rambo.
What was it called, Jim?
Rambo.
Rambo 2. He wrote Rambo 2.
Yeah.
He wrote Rambo 2, and he wrote a scene, and while they were shooting the scene, one of the stunt guys fell off a cliff and died, and it was his scene that he had written. And I was working with him, and he. I didn't know anything about it, but he was just in an odd, weird space.
I mean, he's anything but careless. I mean, he's the opposite of it. I mean, like you said, he's everything. He sets the bar really high, and he's meticulous, and he expects everybody to work at that level.
Yes.
He's not unnecessarily cruel. I mean, I know he's short-tempered, you know what I mean? The closer you are to him, the more he can kind of josh with you, you know what I mean? But he does not like, if you're lazy or incompetent. Oh, God. Oh, my God.
Right.
Yeah, everybody like, whoa. Yeah, that's, and you're just not there.
Right.
He does not suffer.
Well, there are certain people he works with over and over again. One being you, another one being Sigourney, another one being me. And Arnold, obviously.
Yeah.
But I think all of us have sort of work ethics, and that we don't have any expectations except for trying to work, be there, be ready, get on the set before Sigourney shows up, be ready to go, know your lines, and, give it your best. And
I can't think of anything else you would want to do. I didn't have a bandwidth for anything else. I mean, a lot of times because of my nerves of never feeling like I understand the technical aspect of it, that's just kind of my thing, is that I need to tell myself to relax more, because I'm always so on edge, because I always think like I don't know the language as well as other. That's how I've always felt, but I definitely felt that on Aliens, but it was Mark Ralston and Bill Paxton. It was all the other guys, Rico Ross, who helped me because they'd been on films to kind of tell me, eye line.
Right.
I knew hit your mark. I knew that. I heard that in films.
Right. Yeah.
I figured it was on tape, but I didn't know like leaning. I just had not done that, and it was overwhelming. But what I had been taught, as an actor, is you use everything you have that's real in the moment, right there, what you're doing, because you're alive. So my being on edge and scared and having to concentrate every single second and not knowing is perfect for what Vasquez was going through.
Oh, yeah.
She didn't show it. And that Jenette Goldstein did not want to show it either. But you just use all of that, and then everything's alive and it's real. So, like if you have the flu that day, your character has the flu,
there are many times in my career where I've been nervous, anxious, of first day of shooting, going on somebody else's show. And I always seems like I'm always able to, in my head, figure out a reason why my character himself would be a little bit nervous, and so therefore it's okay.
Right.
It's okay
right.
that
Yep.
I'm nervous,
Yep.
and I thought about that way. I was talking to Jim before you came in about, and I think I've spoken to you about this before, but I'd just like to hear it again from you. One of the most interesting, I would say, introductions to a character in the movie Aliens is you're I believe you're introduced when you're doing pull-ups. Maybe you do something before that, but there's a sequence where you're doing pull-ups, and Paxton walks by you and says, "Hey, Vasquez, have you ever been
mistaken for a man?
Have you ever been mistaken for a man?" And then you say, "No, have you?" Okay. Did you tell me that?
It's such a great line.
Why? Was both of those lines written?
Oh yeah. Oh yeah.
Okay.
Oh yes.
Yeah.
No, and actually, I just saw in the the documentary, the new documentary.
Yes.
I was on a plane and it's there, and I'm like, it was too bad. If someone had been sitting next to me, because we had a whole row to myself, I would have. That's me. I know I would have done that, but I was like, he said he heard someone say that, a woman in a bar. He wrote that down.
Oh.
But what I think you're thinking of is when that is said, because it didn't say she was doing pull-ups while that's being said. That's what I didn't improvise that, but that's what I had suggested to Jim, is that because wearing a tight T-shirt, I look nothing like a man, no matter how how stupid Paxton is.
Yeah.
I said, I can do these really difficult pull-ups, these wide grip behind the neck. I have no idea how I was able to do those, but and if we do that while the line is being said, that will really kind of.
So it was your idea to do the pull-ups.
Yeah, and I said, maybe this is what they do. Is there a way the guys could set up a bar?
That worked so perfect.
And rig that up. Like that's part of their waking up,
yes,
routine. The two, which of course made sense, and it was a real good. So, Yeah, I was scared to suggest that because.
Well, here's the here's the thing, though, that
nobody used it. He used it.
Well,
it was a good. That was the thing. It was like with him, you never wanted to add something if it wasn't going to add something. And I knew that this would take a lot of time to re-rig the set. They would have to find a bar and do that.
Yep.
But I was like, no, this is worth stopping and doing, because this will really make the scene. So.
Well, I've always found Jim and Adam. By the way, I went back and watched. I had a director on named Adam Wingard, and we're trying to figure out how to pronounce his last name because it's spelled Wingard, Wingard, and I was like, Wingard? He's like, yeah, you got it, Michael. But actually, I went back and I watched the thing that I did because it's a movie I just finished with him, and he pronounces his name Wingard. Yeah. So anyway, getting back to that scene, one of the things that I find so the brevity of that sequence and the brevity of lines that you have, that Bill has, and that Mark have, so quickly set up kind of who the three of you are in a very, we don't need to know about your history. We don't need to know that many more lines. We know who Bill is.
Right.
We know who you are, and we know who Mark is pretty quickly. And I've always found that about Jim's writing is like when you can create characters with 3 or 4 lines and immediately kind of go like, okay, this guy's here and she's here.
Oh,
and
yeah. That's what you want to do with writing. You just want minimal.
I was telling Michael before we started that scene, to me, I thought put the movie in a second gear and told us pretty much what we needed to know about those Marines.
Absolutely,
very efficiently.
Yeah, it was very efficient. Absolutely, you knew exactly who Hudson was. You knew the relationship between all of them. You knew the admiration of Drake to Vasquez and the whole thing. And I guess, I think the first thing she does is that's right. I get up, we prepare to do it, and I see Sigourney. And I do that. That was improvised. The Mira Justo White. That one.
What is it?
Oh yeah.
What is it? What did you say?
I forgot what was in the script. It was kind of cheesy.
Yeah.
I know what it was. It was like, sorry, Jim. It was like, who's the fresh meat or something.
Yeah.
It is.
Yeah.
So I just thought, I thought I would do something different. But yeah, no.
What did you say?
I said, who's Snow White? Mira. Hey, look at that. Snow White,
Oh, Snow White. Oh,
Snow
yeah,
White.
that's right. Yeah. Good.
Just, to set up, this person and how she has her moments of cheekiness.
That's just like, this is what I'm always trying to explain about Jim, is that if you've got a good idea and he's got a line and you've got a line that works, you've got a line that seems to work better.
Paxton, oh my God.
Yeah.
He was throwing in everything he could.
Yeah.
Everything in his quiver.
One of the things that I thought is interesting about the relationship that you have with Mark is kind of it reminds me of quite a bit of the relationship that I have with Sigourney that Hicks has, where you have a man who respects a woman, and back then, movies weren't quite like that, and men's attitudes were different, and women, weren't necessarily
it's still
soldiers.
Like that. No, I love the relationship between. It's interesting. I never think about that, Vasquez and Drake, but between Hicks and it's a friendship. You never. It's so unique because you never see like just a acknowledgement of equals and a friendship. It always has to gear into a love affair or whatever that is. That doesn't matter. I mean, but the idea of like friends and the two of them, and also
the band of brothers quality about their situations too. We're all in the same.
Yeah, and
boat
you don't get you. It's like it's so weird because I mean, I don't know, like brother, sister. It's such a unique
comrades in arms.
Comrades in arms. I mean, Mark and I. It's interesting. Mark and I are best friends. I mean, that's.
I
And people
know.
have always said,
I
why
know.
don't you? What did you guys ever think of getting married? There was that always that.
Yeah.
I'm like, what? And it's so funny because that's when they go, oh, Drake and Vasquez, were they a thing? It's funny. It's like I always would just go, what are you talking about? You know what?
Right. You know, there's I just thought of this, and it's. I guess it's a little demeaning. I'm not sure why I did it. I don't think Jim would have kept it in if he didn't like it or did not want it. But, there's a scene where you're talking about, I'll do this and I'll do that. And I'm in the background. And
You're mouthing what
I'm mouthing your words. Did we you remember us deciding we were going to do that together, or
No. I don't even know if you. I didn't notice that because I noticed there was a picture. There was a shot of me, and your mouth is open. I'm like, why is Michael's mouth hanging open? And I watched the scene, and it's like, oh my God, he's saying my lines. And I just thought, either you've. I just thought, oh my God, she must say this all the time.
I think that might have been all the time. I think that might have been.
Here she goes. Here's her.
Yes. But
she's doing her bit. She's doing her bit.
Yeah.
That was funny. I never noticed that until someone pointed that out to me.
I think that it's the best movie that I've ever done by far, and I've said many times, just over the last month, that I think that you could release Aliens in the theater today, and the visual effects that are now 40 years old would hold up extremely well.
It does. Every time I see it, I can't believe, because usually it's the visual effects that look the cheesiest.
Yeah.
In every era, and it's understandable.
Yeah.
Adam Wingard, the director Michael was talking about a few minutes ago, was about 10 years old when the movie came out, and he said it was one of the real profound influences on him becoming a filmmaker. They tried to recreate the movie with his parents' VHS camera.
Well, they tried to recreate the movie with 3, 4, and 5 too. I've always said it's kind of hard to follow Jim Cameron.
But it's so funny. I'll go into. I mean, I haven't had an audition in ages since I kind of retired from the business. But I mean, there's. What was it? Some Star Trek film I was in, and I met the director, and he said, I had to also cast you because, of course, my son, you are his favorite actor, and he would have killed me. And I know, like Bill Hope said, the last television show he's doing, Silo.
Yes.
I forget the showrunner, some famous. He walks into the meeting, and the director goes, Sergeant Gorman. He's like, oh my God.
Yeah.
It was just
so
really.
Bill Paxton used to call aliens the gift that keeps on giving, right?
But it's amazing, that people say, oh my God, this inspired me, and I loved this as a kid. Or the one I love is my brother. And me and my brother would fight who got to play you when we were pretending to do aliens.
Right.
I was like, yes, because I always had to pretend to be a little boy character when I was pretending, because I was a tomboy. And I was like, there were no girl characters. I'll be Huck Finn and you be Tom Sawyer, and
Jennifer mentioned something to me yesterday when we were talking about you, and it never dawned on me because I never thought about it. But I did a movie called The Fan.
Oh yeah,
and it was Robert Stigwood. The original director was gay. There's some sort of like gay men love it. They just love the movie. Gay men, okay? Do gay women? Is that something with your character Vasquez that is like a thing?
Oh, yeah.
Okay.
Yeah. I mean, and straight women and gay men and straight men.
But not necessarily like you didn't like, because like with The Fan, not many people know that movie. So when somebody wants to talk about it or wants me to sign something from it, I usually know it's a gay man. And
Really?
I just was wondering if your character, you know,
Definitely.
help represent other young women's feelings and about being gay and
yeah, you know,
not that the character was.
No, and
but-
it's funny because people ask me, you know, that, and I have my answer is I will answer as Vasquez and say it's none of your fucking business.
And I'll be behind you going, it's none of your fucking business.
But yeah, absolutely. I mean,
Yeah. Okay. I wanted to talk to you a little bit also. We kind of get back to Aliens. So, were you still living in England when Aliens came out?
I was, and I came out to visit my family and be at the premiere. I hadn't been back since I left for England. I hadn't been back in 4 years. They'd come out and visited me. It's not like I was, but so I was like, oh yeah, let me come out. I mean, they called me and they said, you know, you should think of coming out because your character came up in the cut. I didn't even know what that meant, you know, whatever. But the audience really likes you. You should come. So I was like, yeah, I'll come. And Mark came with me. He stayed we stayed in like the back bedroom at my folks' house. And yeah. And then I can't remember. I was still living there and I was going back and forth. And then, you know, there was a lot of buzz around me and I got an agent right away, you know,
right,
and you know, how does that ever happen? And auditions and this. And I can't remember when I finally moved back for good, but yeah. I was going back and forth.
Okay.
But I had much more opportunities in the United States than I did in England.
Well, people ask me often, are there any roles that you could have played that you didn't, that you either decided it wasn't right for you, that you look back on and you think, I really, really should have done that. I really should have gone out of my way to do that. And the one that I'm talking about is Near Dark. Okay.
Oh, right. You said that which one was it? Was it Lance's role or was it Bill's? I can't remember. Do you remember?
Here's what happened on Near Dark. Okay, I am not a Jim. Well, I can ask you too. And you're sitting here. Who directed Fear and Loathing in Las Vegas?
Oh, Terry Gilliam.
Gilliam. Like Gilliam. Like those movies are just too weird for me. I don't understand them. I need something to make like perfect sense to me. Beginning, middle, end. You know, like if it's nighttime, then it's dark, and if it's day, daytime, it's light. And don't do too many flashbacks. I'm just not that smart when it comes to things like that. So I got the script for Near Dark, and I read it, Jenette, and I'm not sure I had the offer, but I kind of thought it was my. Looking back on it, I kind of thought it was my role if I wanted it. And I met with Catherine, and who I just remember being strikingly
so
beautiful.
Yeah.
Oh my God!
Yeah.
And 6 feet tall,
Yeah.
strikingly beautiful, and very soft spoken. Very soft spoken. I really, 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 really liked her a lot, and she had done that movie in New York City with something Blue. Do you know the one that she had?
With Jamie Lee Curtis.
Yeah, which with Jamie Lee. What's it called?
That wasn't.
Blue.
That came out. That was afterwards. She had done.
That's later. Yeah.
That's a later movie.
Well, was Near Dark her first?
It was her first solo. She had co-directed a film called The Loveless.
Oh.
With Willem Dafoe.
Oh, I didn't know that. I thought that the one she did in New York was the first one, and then Near Dark came afterwards. Okay.
Was Blue Steel the second one, or was it?
Blue Steel, yeah.
Yeah. Oh, I liked Blue Steel
It
a lot.
came after Near
Yeah.
Dark.
Yeah, it definitely came after. Yeah, Near Dark was her first.
Okay. So I read Near Dark, and I had a hard time following the script. And I have a hard time following a lot of things,
It was kind of like I understand what you're saying, because it was definitely like a piece of poetry.
Right,
and
which I can't ever.
Right.
I can't ever read poetry, and I've never read any poetry
And got
and got it.
Yeah.
You know. And I read this, and it didn't follow the norms of what I think of as storytelling. Is that the way that script was? Does that make sense to you?
Yeah, I haven't analyzed the sort of storytelling, but I did remember reading it and thinking, wow, it reads like poetry.
Okay.
Compared to this point, I had read some other screenplays, but yeah, there was so much left out.
Okay.
That was, there was all this like space, incredible amount of. I mean, it's like poetry. That's all I kind of think about. There's a word here, and you had to fill in, or you trusted that the cinematographer, the director would fill in, or the music, or all there. It was not on the page, but yeah, I could see it was definitely a difficult read to figure out what is this good or is this bad. I mean, I remember Lance and Bill and I didn't mention to each other that we had read it and were reading for it until quite a long way into the process, because we were sort of embarrassed to explain the script, that it's about vampires, but they're really kind of in a Winnebago. It sounded so cheesy if we had to explain it to each other, that we just kind of, when we said, oh, so what are you reading for? And we're like, oh, nothing, this and that. And I forget what it was. Maybe Lance said, well, there's this vampire, but it's really good, I swear. And then Bill was like, oh, wait a second, I'm reading for this vamp.
Right.
Like, but it's really good, isn't it? I was like, yeah, it's really good.
Well, I had I remember and having lunch with Catherine, and we probably talked more about aliens than we did Near Dark. But I gave her Jim's telephone number. And she then eventually called Jim and said, hey, I'm using your entire cast in my new movie, and they obviously ended up getting married, and that's that. And they did this is Strange Days, I think kind of together or whatever. Yeah. But I always felt like I had a little bit to do with
putting them together.
Putting them together, and but it's one of the movies, and I didn't know that Bill was you were going to do it. I didn't know Bill was going to do it. I don't know.
I have no idea what. This is probably earlier. This is maybe this is when you passed or something like that. I have no idea when.
Who's the name of what was the name of the star of the thing with that guy? There was a guy.
Adrian? Are you talking about Adrian?
Adrian Pastar.
Pastar.
Yeah, Adrian. Adrian, I think Adrian was set.
Oh, okay.
So Adrian, I think, was set, and
Jenny, maybe, I don't know, Jenny Wright.
And then I think that she wanted me, would have. I think that they offered me, or would have offered me, or it is the role that Lance had, I believe, and I had known. If I had known she was going to go on and win Academy Awards. No, not only that, but if I had known that Bill was going to do it and that you were going to do it, it might have changed my mind. I just didn't. I couldn't understand it. I couldn't understand it. What's the name of that movie? I always forget the name of it. Where the poster is like five guys standing in a lineup.
The Usual Suspects.
Usual Suspects. Like, I couldn't understand that. I read it and I was like, that's like
really. Oh,
a Singer's first movie,
was it one of that?
That
was a great movie. I didn't read. I didn't know how the screenplay read, but
I couldn't understand it. I couldn't understand it. And it's really hard for me because by that time I wasn't auditioning. I would
Oh,
just,
it's like direct offer.
so I
Tough on
yeah,
the
so I
page,
would go in, but I didn't get offered that. But I would go in sometimes, and I would take meetings, and I would sell myself the way I was going to play the role, and sometimes some lines would slip in and stuff.
But if you didn't understand it, and it's hard.
If I didn't understand it, it's hard for me to go in and go, "Oh, Catherine, this thing is just like unbelievable," because like I just didn't get it. I was like maybe hoping that but it's a beautiful movie to look at. It's a beautiful movie, and you guys sounded like you just had like so much fun making it.
It was a lot. It was a lot of fun. It was also hard because it was nights, all nights. It was how many weeks of just nights,
right?
And it was. I mean, I think the guys had more fun than I did because they were really into the guns and the Old West and spinning and doing all that. Like how dudes are. They love that kind of thing. But
gun spinning stuff.
Gun spinning, and you know that you did that sort of thing. I mean, I had to act and pretend that I loved shooting a gun.
Right.
That's my no. I love the character, and I love the story and the smallness of it.
Yes.
And working with a woman writer and director, so unusual. Again, I mean, this was my second film, so it's
that was the second. So you did Aliens and then Near Dark.
Yeah.
Wow.
Yeah. Right.
Well,
after.
that's yeah.
Yeah. So I just
two Academy Award winning directors right there.
Yeah. That's right. I didn't think about that. I just felt. And that I was, working with really incredibly creative people. And I loved the producer on it. He was really great. There was a whole, like, hands on it until the release. till the poster and the, they didn't know what to do with it. They really didn't. It
was sort of competing with Lost Boys.
Well, it was competing.
And also, it was made by De Laurentiis Entertainment Group, that company that Michael
I got caught up in that. I got caught up in his bankruptcy.
Right at the same time,
oh yeah.
A bunch of movies that really
I
never got distribution. Near Dark only debuted in 260 theaters in the whole country, so it just had a very fitful kind of release.
Yeah, I know there was just some mess. It was definitely. I mean, I felt like the marketing of it, the poster, the American poster was Bill's
marketing. It wasn't not.
Go ahead.
The Bill. Do you remember the poster?
It was Bill's full of blood. Right?
Oh God! And I thought it was a joke when I saw that the first time. They go, come to the office. Oh, you got to see what the poster. How and I walked in and I laughed because I thought Bill had made that up as a joke.
Right.
Because he was always saying he's never featured in anything. And Mad Magazine, I remember when Mad Magazine came out with Aliens, we ran down, I remember the newsstand near Cantor's, and we got the Mad Magazine, we went, and we're opening up to see, how we're drawn, and he's drawn as a chicken head. Like, they don't know. He was so, he's like, God dang.
Paxton was?
Yeah. It wasn't
Mad Magazine.
It wasn't a caricature of his face. He wanted to see it. It was oh my God, he was so pissed off. So I truly thought.
I wish I'd seen that.
You should see that. It's really funny. I've got like hair under my arms and it's like I got to shave or something, but it's great. It's a caricature of me. And I truly thought he had just done that as a joke because it has nothing to do with the movie and it's one frame, And I was like, ay. I mean, like the Canadian, the European one was that picture of us silhouetted on that hill.
Okay.
It gave that like the feeling of what this was. And I think a lot with that poster is the people who really would have appreciated it saw that like bloody thing and went,
right.
I'm not seeing this horror thing.
It's a complete kind of opposite of the depiction of what the film was.
Right, and then I think the people who thought, "Oh, I love blood and guts and blood," and went to see it, and then we're like, "Yuck, what the hell is this?"
Artsy
fartsy.
Yeah,
thing.
yeah.
And it was pre Quentin Tarantino. So there wasn't that mixture of artsy and grindhouse together.
Right.
That sort of mixing of genres.
Mm-hmm.
You forget that it was. So they didn't know where to place it. I mean, the interesting thing when people say they love it, which they do, I mean, people, it's this incredible cult following. And I always say, so how did you discover it? And rarely someone who says they saw it in the theater,
right,
I want to give them an award because it played 2 weekends, I think, about. And I remember because my husband, my now husband, he saw, I couldn't believe it. He actually was a manager of one of these grindhouse movie theaters in San Francisco. It was like on a triple bill with something. So he saw it in the theater.
He did.
Yeah. And he loved it, you know.
Right.
So that's why I married him.
Excuse me. So you did Near Dark, and then how much after that? How long after that was did you work with Gilliam on?
On Fear and
Loathing. And did you shoot that? Was that in Vegas? Did you shoot that in Vegas?
No, that was a set, like Paramount or somewhere. You know, it was just in Hollywood. Okay. It was a big room, and they had this. It was so great. They had this like a small crane. It can be inside a room that moved around. You know, so it was done almost like in a one. It was like a scene in a play. We just kind of had a fantastic time doing that crazy scene. And then there was Terry Gilliam in a corner giggling. It was great.
Right. Did you audition for Gilliam?
Yeah.
You auditioned for the part, and then
auditioned with 2 different versions of the role, which was. It seems like the only kind of roles I've ever gotten is when there's like, I don't know what to do with this girl, you know, do something for, you know, it's like kind of crazy. So yeah, I think in the book, she's written as a middle-aged Mexican woman. And they said because of Benicio is Hispanic, they said they don't want that casting and he doesn't know what he wants. But they'd like to see
Bring in Jenette Goldstein.
Yeah, exactly. Bring in Jenette Goldstein. Nobody knows what they want.
The chameleon.
Nobody knows who she is. I don't even know. I have no idea how I even got that. It must have been it's this casting director. Yeah. Anyway, yeah. They said bring in 2 different versions. So I brought in kind of like a Ozark sort of maid, kind of hillbilly sort of girl. And then I brought in that sort of indistinguishable Central European, you know, is she from Moldova or, you know, Slovenia? And I brought in that sort of, and, you know, and then I got, and he improvised with me. It's also same like Jim, you know. Yeah. And,
Gilliam did? Yeah.
And then I got and he was laughing and I got the role, and I was on set, and then I remembered I forgot to ask, well, which version do you want me to do?
Right.
And he said, oh, I'm so sorry. You know, it's that. Where were you from? And I said, actually, I have no idea where I was from. I was just making up that crazy accent. And he said, oh, that's great. So I did the Eastern European from the former Czechoslovakia or something.
Right. When you saw the movie?
Oh, Fear and Loathing?
Yes.
Yeah, I didn't know what was going on. No, I'd read the book.
You're not alone.
No, you can't. You know, it's better the second time. The thing is, looking at visuals and then hearing the incredible dialogue, which is also bizarre, you can't do it at the same time. I think that was the problem. He was doing, it seemed like at the same time you're trying to listen to the dialogue and then you're also trying to look at the visual and you miss a lot of the book. But, you know, adaptations are either, you know, they're hit or miss. And
yeah.
People who read that book really kind of fell in love with it. It had a huge following and people wanted to make it for years. And I think ultimately it was just unshootable.
Yeah, there's a lot of films like that I'm just trying to think. What is that one? That was just made with Adam Driver. I forget, it was a book, and then it was like, well, maybe this is why no one's ever made it. You know, exactly. You just sort of.
Well, now we know why.
Yeah, now we know why.
You're not talking about the Coppola movie, are you? Or you're not talking about the Coppola?
No.
I thought he started.
It was the one with the family where.
The Gucci's.
No, not the Gucci's guy. Yeah, he's in everything.
Yeah, he is.
There's like this crash
Last Duel.
train that explodes. He's a father with a family. It's this weird apocalyptic.
Oh.
I can't remember it, but it.
Yeah.
Yeah, made recently. I don't.
No, it was about 5 years ago.
Yeah, I'll look it up.
We're gonna go to the Google.
We are an hour 20.
Okay. So let me ask you just about where we.
Okay, yeah.
Let me just ask you quickly about a couple of your other credits and just like
Terminator.
if you had fun doing them. I've got
Terminator.
ER written down. I've got 6 Feet Under written down. I've got 24
Lethal
written
Weapon
down.
2.
Oh my god!
Lethal Weapon 2.
I only did the second part.
Mark was in
Yes,
Lethal
he played
Weapon
the
2. Yeah,
South
yeah.
African.
Yeah.
Yeah, I only do the second part of every film. Lethal Weapon. Oh my god! What was some of these things I don't even.
Is that Dick Donner directed that?
Yes.
One too? Yeah. He was a pretty interesting, fun guy.
Sweet God,
Yeah.
what a wonderful person.
Yeah.
What a sweetheart. And action. He's like what you thought a director was.
Yeah.
That was like.
He had a great voice, if I remember correctly. Yeah.
Yeah. It was a really sweet man. What an ER. Well, the funny thing about ER is I think unless they had a policy where, where you could not be in, if you were a guest star in two episodes, even if you're playing a different character, whatever. I mean, most long series are like that. They don't use the same actor to play. But I did an episode where I played, like a grieving mother, which was kind of my career in my 40s was
grieving mother.
Yes, grieving over a dead child. The whole thing. Oh my God, it just got this one. I remember. I was telling someone that who was in Alex Winter, who was in it last month, and I said, "Oh no, actually, my child killed the other child." You know what I mean? We found out that was the whole thing. But then I went in. I was a few years later. I was submitted for another role. I didn't know about the policy. It was a nurse in a thing or what, I don't know. And I read the role, and then after they've like, oh, wait a second, she's already been in. We can't use her. And then they said, well, we didn't recognize her, so.
Oh boy!
I guess that no one else in the audience, television land, will recognize her either. I don't know why. I guess I look different. I don't know. I was a nurse or something,
right?
Where I had to write the lines on my arm, my forearm. 10 cc's of like.
Sound like me as an actor when I haven't learned my lines for the like I write my lines on my arms.
I can't remember numbers. I have like number dyslexia, and that was a nightmare.
Right? Yeah.
Having to like pump somebody and then shoot them full of this,
and then say this and say that.
This is how many cc's.
Some medical.
Well, the helicopter is going down. I don't know. I do remember that. I had it written on my arm.
Right.
But yeah, no, I'm just trying to think.
What about 24? Did you work with Kiefer?
Yes.
And how was Kiefer?
He was intense.
Is he?
Yeah.
Because I've never met him. I know him through his mother's.
It was one of my best friends in school growing up. He was his stepdad.
His stepdad.
Yeah.
And he always seemed like he was definitely a good stepdad, right?
Yeah, I think so.
No, I mean, it was an intense. I mean, he was in every single scene.
Yeah.
I mean, when I say intense, I mean he must have been exhausted.
Right.
And then the episodes that I did, he was hooked on heroin. It was that at the end, and I was the internal affairs officer.
Okay.
So that was his character. Although I think he was intense. It was one day. He was.
Right.
But that was I was hoping, I was like, yes, I got a recurring role, and then of course it's canceled because my history of series television, I'm always in the last season. I'm like a killer.
Kiss of death.
I am. You can go MacGyver last season. I mean, it's just like, oh God, MacGyver. That was going to MacGyver. I had never seen MacGyver, and I'm in the kind of waiting room or the trailer with the other sort of guest stars, and I kind of went. So is he like a cop or a? And then the other one, and none of us had seen it, and I go, no, I think he's like a CIA. We were like trying to piece together who the fuck this guy. But he doesn't use a weapon. Yeah, I know that. He uses string. And we were like, I don't know. Maybe we probably should have seen it before we. took the job.
Right.
Oh my
Well,
So is the movie you were talking about called The Man Who Killed Don Quixote?
No, Quixote. No, I think it's
Quixote.
White Noise,
Oh, that was
the
Terry
Don
Gilliam.
DeLillo novel.
Yes.
I think
it's the Don DeLillo novel.
Yeah.
Yes.
White Noise.
White Noise.
That's a famous novel. That
It's a
people
famous
have,
novel, and yeah. Who directed that?
It was Noah Baumbach.
Yes, no bomb. Right. Yeah, a great director, and
yeah.
But it was difficult. I didn't read the book, so I can't really pass judgment on the comparison.
so you think that
his books are very, very tough to translate to the screen. DeLillo. I covered one for William Morris years ago that finally got made as a movie, and nobody saw it. So
yeah, I don't remember which Don DeLillo. Yeah, it'd be really hard. Like E.L. Doctorow.
Underworld is the one I covered, and it.
Oh, really?
Sometimes those, especially the ones that have got great dialogue. What's the author, Jim? Jim Thompson. Jim Thompson has written some great books that you look at and go, boy, this would make a great movie. Boy, this would be a great movie. And they just keep making them, and they just keep not being great movies. I think After Dark was After Dark one of them, Jim?
Yeah.
That one was kind of okay, but yeah. Sometimes
I just watched The Getaway again, the original Sam Peckinpah, Steve McQueen version, not long ago.
Yeah. Well, I guess
that's kind of Walter Hill's script too. Walter's first script.
Wow. Wow.
Yeah.
All right. Well, Jenette, thank you for coming and doing this. I'm sure fun. That I'm so happy that we've known each other for 40 years now.
I know.
And
it's crazy, huh?
Somebody said something to me when I was doing Aliens. And it might have been Bill. You might have said something to Bill, but it gave me, and because I remember the weight room, because as soon as I got there, I was going in lifting weights, and I think you were in the room at the same time, and you complimented me in some way. I've forgotten exactly what it was, and Bill said something to me about it, but it gave me a lot of confidence in thinking that, like, oh, I'm starting to be accepted by this group, and this, like, I just
that wasn't hard just to go in there. Well, I probably went back to the Terminator. I mean, seriously, that's one of my favorite. I like it better than Terminator 2, even though I was in Terminator 2. I really liked it. I love noir, and it was so stripped down. And I think I said, because I remember by the time the two, you and Linda, got together, like the love, it really deserved it. You see things and people, you earned it. That's what I want to say. At the end, you understood why they had to do this, and it was. I like performances of little words. I'm much more attracted to maybe men who are quiet, but you read things into what is not said. I mean, I love shots, and Cameron does that. Jim does that all the time. He tells the story by people's reactions. The camera is on the people who are reacting and listening to what's going on as much as the ones who are saying the dialogue.
Here's the thing, Jenette, is that that description of a character that doesn't say very much is a perfect description of Hicks. Hicks barely. I probably got 20 lines in the movie or less. I just like
and Vasquez too.
Falling asleep. I'm asleep half the time. Bill and I used to, we would go out and kind of tear up London and, have to show up for work the next day. And knowing what was on the call sheet, we didn't have to, do this or that or whatever. But it it was always easy for me to just, curl up and fall asleep on the floor. And that way, if people go like, "Oh, look at Michael, he's Hicks, he's in character."
I couldn't do that. I was
right.
I was carrying an 85-pound weapon. I would have.
I know. You and Mark, I can always remember in between shots, because in between shots we all like to run off and these days make a telephone call, or in those days have a cigarette, or just whatever. And every time in between shots on Aliens, you and Mark had to like keep those guns on, and like you'd lean up. Didn't they have like a leaning board for you or something?
Well, yeah, no, it was a stool. It was a stool with a hole in it, like between our legs, where we could place the gun, because of course we couldn't take it off to rest it.
Right.
And they were, oh God, yeah, we would sad. That's why we became best friends, because we would just sit there, like, how you doing? Does it hurt? Does your back hurt? Yeah, my back hurts too.
Right.
Is it your left leg? Yep. Yeah. Sciatica? Mm-hmm.
Bonding experience.
It definitely was. I mean, that's definitely why we bonded so much.
Well, the characters bonded so well, and another, Jim is just so good, and I'll try to wrap it up with this, but I just thought of it, can't think of the character's name now, Gorman.
Mm-hmm.
The evolution of his character from being this kind of inexperienced, supposed to be in charge, kind of scared guy, to then getting knocked out, kind of be missing from the movie. The fact that you and him are kind of together in that death scene, and that you kind of like the two opposite people of the entire movie would be, I would say, him with his not having any confidence, and you probably being maybe overconfident, but like the two people that you would think that would never really bond end up kind of bonding in that final moment. It's really pretty beautiful, I think.
Yeah.
It's a nice.
It is. It's a pretty good piece of writing there.
Always goes back to that. Okay, well.
It's true. It's true. The writing, it's a really great story. That's what it is. It's the story, right?
Yes.
It's the people and the story and what they're doing, and, really that makes something like that last for 40 years. It's kind of crazy.
Yeah. I have said this before, that I think it's this is always my creditors or Jennifer. Creditor. Anyway, I forgot what I was going to say, but just thank you for coming, because I know you had to get in your car. I know you had to drive over here. I know you had to get dressed, and otherwise I would just be home doing nothing. So, but thank you so much for coming in and sharing this, and I hope that in time people will always be able to look back at this and go, oh, this is where Vasquez came from. This is who created Vasquez. And I think it's important for the future that people know you. And I don't know if you've done this to this length before, but
it's funny. I haven't done it with another cast member. Us talking together. So this is really special.
Okay,
Thank you.
Cool. Well, thank you.